You tell me how you feel about Michigan. How's Michigan this year? They finished 11th on the preseason poll here.
That's crazy to me. We already talked about this. I think this Michigan team could actually be good. Like, I maybe good's a stretch, but like, I think they're way closer to like I guess this phrase fit. They're closer to the top six in the Big Ten than they are to like being like in the Minnesota and Penn State range and Nebraska range. I think people are putting them in that category, and I think they got enough talent to be considered more towards the top portion of the Big Ten with those teams. I think they can win games defensively. I think Nkamhoua is a very underrated ad. When we get to our teams, you might be surprised where I have Nkamhoua. So I don't know. I'm a little bit more in on this Michigan team than I think others are. I do think that they make the NCAA tournament this season.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard you say that before. I was surprised you went on record with that. Mostly just because I feel like that doesn't track with your history of feelings towards Michigan basketball teams, but I think it's the right read. Yeah, I don't know. They were voted 11th in this poll. That's consensus. 28 writers all voted individually. I am surprised they finished 11th, not because I think it's crazy to pick Michigan 11th. I think it's shocking that as the sample size goes up from like 2 people that might be low on Michigan to 28 people, that's where they land. I don't think Michigan is worse than Iowa, Rutgers, Northwestern. I think at minimum, they're right in that group. I think if you look at the players on their teams, really not Rutgers, but Northwestern and Iowa to me are like top heavy. Like Boo Booey's fantastic. And then everybody else is a total question mark. Iowa, Perkins, you know what you're getting. Samford, you're hopeful he can be really good. Everything else is a total question mark. And we know they're going to stink defensively. Rutgers, I like their makeup. They're balanced in theory, but if Peichel takes Derek Simpson to being a top 200 offense, that would be an achievement, in my opinion. So, we're back here with Michigan where they have holes, no doubt. Like, the fifth starter's not good, but I feel like there's a lot of negativity being thrown at this program right now because of the narrative that Juwan Howard really underachieved for back-to-back seasons, but more so last season on a team that was built around Hunter Dickinson, built to win now. They were super young. They had a bunch of guys that were NBA players that, quite frankly, weren't great college basketball players. That's a problem, and Juwan Howard deserves criticism for that. Juwan Howard has also had really good college teams in his tenure at Michigan. He has done that. We have seen it. It's not like this guy can't coach. It's not like he can't win in the NCAA tournament. He didn't last season. That doesn't mean he's done. Now, there's health concerns, certainly, and more so, like, the biggest concern is that there's talent concerns on this team. Like, the fifth starter is going to be Jalen Llewellyn or Yusuf Kayet or Trey Jackson. It will be Trey Jackson day one. I don't think it will be by the end of the season. That's a concern for me for sure. But I feel like people have really flipped negatively on the Doug McDaniel-Terrace Reed duo. Number one, like, it's not necessarily just about Nkamhoua, and Nkamhoua did not get a lot of love in this poll. Like, I think you and I are higher on Nkamhoua than everybody that voted in this poll is. But even if you don't think Nkamhoua is going to be like a good first option star, Doug McDaniel and Terrace Reed are like high pedigree recruits that should be right in the mix with other guys in this conference on quote unquote better teams that we're projecting breakout seasons from. Like, I don't get why those guys are written off, and 8 of the 24 voters here picked Nebraska over Michigan. Like, to me, Nebraska would kill to have Doug McDaniel and Terrace Reed as like a core compared to what they're working with. I don't know. It's kind of just asinine to me, and I think it's flipped in a really negative direction. I want to can I numbers you? We're not a math podcast, but can I throw some numbers at you?
Please.
I want you to tell me whose numbers these are. 15 points and 7 assists at Minnesota, 17 points and 5 assists versus Northwestern, 16 points and 8 assists in a game against a team I don't want to admit, 19 points and 5 assists in a game against a team I don't want to admit, 18 points and 4 assists in a win against Michigan State, 16 points and 4 assists in a win at the rack at Rutgers, 20 points against Wisconsin, 10 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals at Assembly Hall at Indiana. Whose numbers are those?
Is it a Michigan player?
Maybe.
Is it Doug?
It's Doug McDaniel. Doug McDaniel, in the final month of the season, from February 18th on, over 8 games, averaged 14 points and 5 assists on a team that had Kobe Buffkin and Hunter Dickinson both shooting a combined 22 times a game on it. Like, everybody's in on the Bruce Thornton train. We've been waving the Braden Smith flag all offseason. Those guys are really good, and I love them. Do not get me wrong. Doug averaged 14 and 5 on a team with Hunter and Kobe in the final month of the year when he finally got his feet under him and understood how to play college basketball. He was really good for the final month of the season. And now he's on a team where he is going to be the first option offensively. I get that Kamwa is good. Doug McDaniel will be the first option on this team. I believe that really strongly. And if you're projecting a breakout from other guys, I don't think you should have seen anything from Doug McDaniel that should make you believe he's not going to break out and be really good this season and beyond. Like, he is a piece that Michigan should be really excited about. And the fact that him, Kamwa, and Terrace Reed as a core is picked 12th in this conference beneath a team that's just Tominaga and nothing else is insanity to me. I don't get it. And I've really restricted myself from buying into Michigan. I don't think they're going to be that good this year. But this is where I draw the line. Like, this is officially swung too low on Michigan. I'll put my stake in the ground. I'm buying stock in this team. If they're picked 12th, that's absurd.
Yeah, that's how you trigger Gregory if you attack his youngest son. Do not attack Doug McDaniel like that. But no, I think that well, I did have 2 questions for it. Is this team, like, it's pretty obvious, like, this team is the least talented team Juwan's had, right, in his tenure, easily?
I guess it really depends on who the 5th guy is, but on paper, yeah.
The reason I asked that is because I just want a refresher. Think back to the other team that you would probably put in this fold as like Juwan's least talented team. How did Juwan do with that team?
Well,
he did so he has a track record of doing well with maybe some under talented teams.
I mean, at Michigan, his teams have been uber talented for the most part. But if you were picking one that wasn't talented, you would go back to his very first year where it was, and even that team had like senior Xavier Simpson, but
like Eli Brooks and who else was on that team? Was that Brooks?
It would have been like Brooks and Isaiah Livers before Livers was good, but like role player types that he was taking in around a Xavier Simpson. David DeJulius and Adrian Nunez were playing big minutes on those teams at times. Like, and that team was a lock NCAA tournament team. They weren't anything special. I think they got as high as 3rd in the country in the non-conference because they won the Battle for Atlantis, and then kind of just were like a 500 team in the Big Ten. But like, that should be the expectation to me, kind of in a wide open Big Ten with how much talent is on this roster. It's not a ton, but like, there's not a lot of talent on any of these teams. I'm not writing Juwan Howard off because a team that was led by Hunter Dickinson and his son, who refused to guard ever, wasn't a good basketball team. Like, that was last year. Every problem from last year's team is gone now, literally. And so is the talent, but every problem is gone. This year's team should be really good defensively. Like, we know Terrace Reed's a really good defender. Doug was a good defender last year. We know Namari Burnett and Olivier Kamwa are impact defenders. Like, this team will be good defensively at minimum. And if Doug and or Kamwa are just good offensive options, which, again, spoiler alert, every Juwan Howard team's first and second option have been great offensively. He has never had a problem featuring players offensively and getting production out of them. It's been the guys beyond that. And look, the 5th option, whoever it is on this team, is going to hold them back. That's true. That's not going away. But even like last year's team, man, was not like behind other teams in the Big Ten. Last year's team didn't make the NCAA tournament because they had a horrendous disaster non-conference. That's what happened. And it was because they thought Jalen Llewellyn was a guy, and then he got hurt. It took them 2 months to sort that out. Once Doug McDaniel was handed the keys and we realized what was going on, the team was right in the middle with all the other Big Ten teams. So you just got to avoid disaster again this year. And this year, you don't have an identity problem. You know who the team is. It's Doug McDaniel's team. It's Olivier Kamwa's team. And by the way, like, for anybody who wants to come out and hit me with the, oh, well, everybody's down on Juwan Howard because they missed the tournament last season. Let me just make sure everybody knows who's on the rosters of these Big Ten teams real quickly. Olivier Kamwa has as many NCAA tournament wins single-handedly as Nebraska, Ohio State, Rutgers, Iowa, Northwestern, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, and Purdue all had combined last season. So we can slow down on being worried about that, okay? It's if this team has a fifth option that's playable or not. That's what decides the season.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a nice little showcase for Doug before he heads somewhere else next year too. So, but you know how I feel about Doug McDaniel and Terrace Reed. I've already said that I think they're going to be. I think they're as a 1-2 punch. I think a lot of teams would take that. I'll tell you right now, Nebraska would take that. Minnesota would take that. A lot of these teams that you're putting at the bottom in like that 11-12 range, they would easily take this Michigan roster and these Michigan players. So they shouldn't be lumped in with that. I don't agree with that. Last thing I'll ask on this is that Aaliyah guy, is he gonna play this season? Is he eligible? Is he on the team?
It's up in the air is the last I've heard. It's like the Kentucky guy. Nobody knows if he's admitted
Got
or
it.
not.
Got it. If he's not there, who's your backup 5? Or you just put Olivier at the 5?
Yeah, the backup 5 would be Kamwa in that situation,
okay.
which is the only reason that's problematic is then that opens where you need Trey Jackson and or Terrence Williams to play real minutes at the 4.
Massive that Terrace Reed stays out of foul trouble this season.
Absolutely.
Massive.
Absolutely.
And it's also really not that hard not to foul, especially if you know like you're gonna play no matter what. Like just let some things go. Just don't foul.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually fun. But okay, we can move on.
Just like being a good person. It's actually fun. You should try it.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you know like you're gonna play 30, right? You know you're gonna play as long as you stay out of foul trouble. Just like let some things go. Like, don't get any cheap fouls. Don't get any stupid reaches. You don't have to read. Maybe your guy scores. Maybe he does. That's fine. Just wall up and don't foul.
Yeah. How many points does Carson Cooper score this year? What's the jump there?
Probably like 4.
So a jump. Nice. That'd be nice. Whole 4. That's honestly the biggest jump of the team that you've shown me so far. Okay.